After Jiang Chacha entered the game, she was in debt of 1 billion and forced to work part-time for 4 top male leads. But she is a vicious supporting actress that they all dislike. So she embarked on the path of working in a vest. Part-time 1. Serving as a maid for CEO Qingleng. Bian Jichen, a young master from a wealthy family, is a rising star in the future business world. On the first day as a maid, watching him have lunch with Miss Qianjin, Jiang Chacha's task was to match the Qianjin and the single-dog young master. So, she learned from the comforting tone of the butler in the literature of Mr. Ba. The young master finally smiled. Later, Bian Jichen discovered that his maid had turned around on the road and hit a Ferrari after work. Part-time 2. Work as a bodyguard for the sick and weak young master Jingui. Cheng Yi, a weak and sickly beauty who cannot take care of herself. On Jiang Chacha's first day as a bodyguard disguised as a man, she discovered danger and immediately landed in front of him. A princess hugged him. Later, Cheng Yi accidentally discovered that she had saved him, but rubbed her arms behind her back. The skin exposed from her suit was cold white with a dazzling crimson hue. Originally, both of them were performing together. Part-time 3. Serving as a tutor for a student president who is a refined and despicable student. Wen Huaiji, illegitimate son of a wealthy tycoon, ranked first in his grade. As the vice president, she confronts him every day at school, portraying the malicious young lady to the fullest. Behind her, she disguised herself as an intellectual English teacher at his house. In the school office, seeing her exhausted and lying on the table, Wen Huaiji unintentionally came behind her and imprisoned her slender waist in his own arms with one hand. His eyes under narrow-framed glasses were smiling. Is it because he taught me English last night? Is the teacher too tired? Keywords of the novel. Me, a malicious female supporting character, holding multiple roles without pop-ups. Me, a malicious female supporting character, holding multiple roles. Download the full text. Me, a malicious female supporting character, holding multiple roles. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Bankrupt female supporting actress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Bankrupt female supporting actress. When Jiang Chacha woke up, she found herself sleeping on a luxurious princess bed, with an incredibly soft mattress underneath, even the quilt being made of down. On the ground, there are various branded packaging bags scattered, as well as unopened high-end luxury goods. Where is she? In my ear, the phone by the bedside kept ringing harshly. Jiang Chacha didn't react and instinctively reached out to pick it up. Hello. Hello Miss Jiang, the limited edition bag you ordered last month has already been delivered to you. We have sent you an electronic bill, and I'm not sure when you can settle this. What situation? Jiang Chacha woke up a bit and immediately sat up from the bed, only to find several sheets of paper scattered on the sheets. There are bills for paying water, electricity, and property management fees for high-end apartments, membership fees for international dance studios, payment amounts for shopping in major CBD malls, and lists of luxury goods that she doesn't know reminding her to pay when she moved. She found a sharp pain in her left wrist. Looking down, I realized that the originally snow-white and delicate wrist was bandaged. This is definitely not her body, her skin is definitely not taken care of so well, it's like grinding the skin. What's going on with this wound? Jiang Chacha's eyelids twitched as she quickly noticed a student ID card placed on the bedside table next to her. The bold font on the name line reads Jiang Chacha, but the photo above is a perfect and flawless face, even every strand of hair is exquisite. She looks like a person from two different worlds. Who is this? This cannot be her, although she has the same name and surname, she has an ordinary face. At this moment, she suddenly noticed the blue and gold school emblem on her student ID, which read St. Sakura Noble College. Jiang Chacha let out a scream of fear. Isn't it? As a fan-level player in the second game of Love Story, she quickly recognized this person as a malicious female supporting character with the same name and surname in the game. The vice president of the student union who discussed all 4 top male leads. And at this moment, the phone rang. It is a text message from the bank. Dear VIP user, hello. You are owed a total of 1 billion yuan to our bank, plus interest. Are you joking? What is the concept of 1 billion? Even if she has been working without food or drink since the Qin dynasty until now, she may not have so much money. When she almost fainted, a voice came to her mind. For some reason, you have dressed up as the malicious supporting actress of Heartbeat Game 2. Unfortunately, the family company is currently bankrupt, and your father has run away behind your back. According to the game world setting, you have become a debtor. But in order for the game to run as usual, you must always maintain the persona of the wealthy and wealthy. Your task is to work part-time for the 4 male protagonists in the game. The system will pay you wages based on your performance and provide you with funds to maintain your character. Only by maintaining a good character can you have the opportunity to return to the real world. Remember, you must never lose your vest while working, otherwise the mission will fail. What kind of ghost? Jiang Chacha was in a daze for a long time before gradually accepting this reality. To be honest, she really likes this game and also likes the 4 male leads inside. At first, when she heard that she could approach the 4 male leads, she was ecstatic. But soon, she wilted. However, you should know that she is now the malicious female supporting character in the game setting who not only has princess disease, but also likes to suppress the female lead, is arrogant and worships money, and none of the 4 male leads have a good impression of her. If she were to work part-time between them, wouldn't that be a rush to seek death? At present, it is Friday morning at 6 o'clock, and you still have to attend classes at St. Sakura Noble College. As the vice president of the student union, you have to arrive half an hour earlier than ordinary students, and now you have 20 minutes to tidy up. She was even forced to wash and change clothes as quickly as possible before she could even clear the situation, and then rushed out the door. At 6:30 in the morning, she ran to the entrance of the community panting heavily. Jiang Chacha has already checked the remaining assets of the original owner in advance, without considering whether there is any cash left at home. Her current online assets are only a few thousand. Besides, there are also a bunch of urgent bills waiting for her to pay. Before starting a formal part-time job, she must not spend money recklessly. So, she plans to take the bus and use the most cost-effective way to go to school. Taking the bus. What a joke. You're a spoiled young lady in the game. You have to take a famous bus to school every day to make others envy and hate you, okay? Jiang Chacha looked incredulous and said, I'm bankrupt, and I don't know how long I'll live with a few thousand yuan left. Do you want me to take a luxury car to school? The unscrupulous and malicious system doesn't care about her life or death at all. No matter what method you use, you must take a luxury car to school, otherwise it is a violation of character, and there will be corresponding punishment. System, shall I knock on you? She really had 8 lifetimes of blood mold to wear into this terrible game. Just as she was in a hurry to scratch her ears and cheeks, a black Audi drove over from a distance and slowly slowed down to stop, just about to pass through the gate. Recognizing that the person in the car is the male lead Bian Jichen, and considering your financial situation. You are a poor person, it is not realistic to ask you to rent a car. We are currently sending out tasks to complete, including riding the car of male lead Bian Jichen to school, and the current progress is 0. Jiang Chacha covered her small heart injured and said, Are you polite? You even scolded me for being poor. Wait, is that Bian Jichen sitting in the car who teases her every night with his sexy voice? Bian Jichen, the top male lead in Love Story that has captivated countless players. Born into a wealthy family and the flower of the high mountains, she will inherit the family business and become a business tycoon in the future. Due to her aloof and noble appearance, countless players have followed suit. And now, is Bian Jichen sitting on that Audi? The only remaining property of the original owner is the apartment under their name. This luxurious floor is still a birthday gift from her father last year. It is located in this upscale community, with excellent location and top-notch security. Even if the income is relatively high, people with high salaries may not be able to afford the down payment here for the rest of their lives. I just didn't expect that the female supporting character in the game and Bian Jichen would live in the same wealthy area. As the cars slowly passed through the gate, Jiang Chacha excitedly waved at the car. The driver glanced at her through the car window, and then the black Audi parked on the roadside. It seems that the driver knows her. After passing the gate, the driver got off the car, opened the rear door, and respectfully waited for her to walk over. Wait. Jiang Chacha became alert. It seems that the driver knew she would come to find Bian Jichen. Can you say that the original owner arranged for Bian Jichen to go to school together today? Or what the system doesn't tell her what happened before? Damn it, she has forgotten the relationship between the original owner and Bian Jichen in the game. She is afraid that her behavior will reveal something. Jiang Chacha hesitated and couldn't help but look inside the car. A pair of narrow and slightly cold eyes quickly caught her eye. The man's profile was cold and flawless, and the morning sunlight fell on his nose bridge, casting a sharp and stunning light and shadow. He didn't turn his head, but drooped his eyelids, calmly tilted his eyes, and looked at her without emotion. The slender legs wrapped in stiff suit pants were lazily overlapping, and the man waited silently for her in a noble and superior posture. This is an orange cat author named Meow equals TT smiley face. If you like it, please bookmark it. Wish everyone a happy day. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Elegant Car Riding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Elegant Car Riding. Despite having psychological expectations, Jiang Chacha still felt as if her heart had missed a beat. The young man in a white shirt leaning against the car window really crossed the dimensional wall and walked up to her from the screen. But she has many questions in her heart now. It seems that Bian Jichen knew she would come to find him. Those two people should have made an appointment, right? I just don't know what their relationship is. Two people in the same community in school, not to mention whether their relationship is deep or not, are they at least classmates they know? Jiang Chacha took a deep breath and walked over, enduring the pressure to get into the car. Ding, the progress of the task of rubbing the border and Ji Chen's car has reached 80%. After getting on the car, the driver closed the door. In an instant, the light inside the car dimmed. In the seats of Audi, the man's slender legs crossed the cramped space, overly eye-catching. Jiang Chacha lowered her head and saw the man's straight and textured suit pants and Berluti custom-made leather shoes. His unique and refreshing breath enveloped her everywhere, and invisibly she felt a sense of oppression from the upper class. This is Bian Jichen. Wait, what kind of noblewoman is she? I haven't eaten pork, haven't I seen pigs run? Jiang Chacha's mind quickly flashed through the scenes of those bloodthirsty CEO films she had watched before. So she pretended to tease her hair elegantly and said naturally, I've been waiting for a long time. The car fell into a eerie silence. Bian Jichen, who had no emotional fluctuations, finally moved his eyes and his gaze fell on her generously. Just as she was nervously squeezing her hands, she heard the sound of the fabric rubbing against each other. Jiang Chacha instinctively looked up and saw Bian Jichen's body move. His upper body leaned towards her, and the distance slowly drew closer, so close that she could see his excellent nose bridge and long drooping eyelashes clearly. She was so nervous that her face turned red. Help! Who can tell her when the original owner's relationship with Bian Jichen became so close? Who can withstand it so close? Her heart was beating faster, and this face reminded her of all the love stories she had with him in the game, so she developed an inexplicable confidence. Really? Bian Jichen, this dog man, why is he so eager this time? She had a shy gaze, wanting to say something before finally closing her eyes. But after a long time, the destined kiss still lingered. She opened her eyes in confusion and looked into the clear and slightly cold pupils. Bian Jichen changed the gentle smile in the game, with a clear disgust in his eyes, and coldly said, "Can you stop harassing me?" Although the young man had a peaceful appearance, his body seemed to be covered with rough edges. He lifted his chin slightly and looked down at her coldly. What? Harassing him? Seeing her looking at him in confusion, Bian Jichen smiled and handed her the phone in his hand. His voice was as cold as ice. "Why, Miss Jiang has lost her memory again." Jiang Chacha took the phone and found that it was the original owner in his WeChat chat interface. It turns out that the original owner sent him a message a while ago, which is simply crazy literature in the new era. Bian Jichen. Why did I do so much to you, but you didn't even look at me? Why don't you meet me? Your coldness makes my hands and feet tremble, and my whole body trembles. If you don't meet me again, I'll die to show you. 1 hour after this passage, the original owner sent a photo of self-harm. Transferring role memory for host. Suddenly, the dead game plot began to attack her and added many details that she didn't know, all rushing into her mind. By the way, how could she forget about this matter? Jiang Chacha wished to punch her brain at this moment. From Bian Jichen's perspective, his disgust towards the original owner is not without reason. The malicious female supporting character in the game had a crush on him. But this arrogant young lady's way of pursuing people is a bit different from ordinary people. She was like a stalker, sending people to investigate Bian Jichen's whereabouts all day long. He went crazy buying things to give gifts to Bian Jichen, but he returned them one by one. After the original owner's confession was rejected, he became resentful due to love, and even had the idea of destroying it if he couldn't get it. She turned the tables and vigorously promoted his kneeling and licking of her deeds on the school forum. Now, the school forum is filled with rumors about her affair with Bian Jichen. The malicious original owner even claimed to be Bian Jichen's girlfriend, and most of those posts were bought by her. As a result, Bian Jichen became increasingly disgusted and indifferent towards her. So much so that she went crazy in the end, even self-harming in exchange for the opportunity to meet him. Jiang Chacha suddenly woke up. She finally found out why the original owner's wrist was injured. It turned out that it wasn't Bian Jichen who made an appointment with her, but rather that she was persistently pestering and even hurting herself by asking the other party to meet her. Thinking of her performance just now, Jiang Chacha instantly picked her toes on the ground. At the same time. Ding, unlock your first part-time job. Serving as a maid for Bian Jichen. What? Bian Jichen hates her for being like this. She's going to take the risk of going to his house to be his maid. Isn't that crazy probing on the brink of death? If she loses her vest, she really can't imagine the consequences. At this moment, Jiang Chacha's mind was spinning rapidly, and the amount of information exploded. Bian Jichen is waiting for her to get on the car, and with his disgust towards her, he must not have a good heart. She quickly raised 3 fingers and took the initiative. Bian Jichen, I came specifically to apologize. Bian Jichen. He looked at her with an unclear expression, but in the end, he looked at her with a smile on his face and a warning in his voice. Jiang Chacha, haven't you played this trick enough yet? Jiang Chacha was stunned. She suddenly realized that the original owner might often use such excuses to entangle Bian Jichen. She hurriedly said, those things before were all my fault. I will also clarify the rumors on the forum. Bian Jichen's mouth curved with a faint mockery. He has become accustomed to Jiang Chacha's rhetoric. He asked the driver to park the car on the roadside and then said in a cold voice, in the future, you can use self-harm to threaten me. I will report to the police directly. If you can shut down one person, it will be one. We cannot let you harm a harmonious and beautiful society. I can let bygones be bygones. If there's another time, don't blame me for being impolite. Suddenly, he increased his tone. Go down. Although he has all the beautiful features of adolescence on his appearance, he already possesses a terrifying ferocity and malice on his body. To be honest, Jiang Chacha was scared. Warning. The car riding task is about to fail. If the character set cannot be maintained, the system will impose corresponding penalties. Before this, she was in love with Bian Jichen in the game. Although she knew his character, he always left his unique tenderness to her when playing the game. And now, for the first time, she has seen the cold side of Bian Jichen. Her nose twitched, the corners of her eyes were moist, and she almost cried. After Bian Jichen finished speaking, he noticed that Jiang Chacha was staring at him with a pair of bright red eyes and frowned. However, the system doesn't care about her life or death at all. Punishment includes deducting all the host's current online balance. Startled, Jiang Chacha swallowed the tears in her eyes back into her stomach. What? Take all her money away, how will she still live? Waiting to drink the northwest wind. Watching the driver get off the car and open the car door in front of her, I was about to pull her down. Jiang Chacha became anxious and clung tightly to the car door like a koala. I don't want to go down. I don't want to be thrown on the main road. She doesn't want to drink the northwest wind. The driver was dumbfounded, not expecting the usually elegant young lady to suddenly cry and howl. This reaction was not even anticipated by Bian Jichen, and he frowned faintly. In the early morning, when he met the person he despised the most, Bian Jichen had no patience at all. He had just asked her to get in the car just to warn her. He rubbed his temples wearily, his voice resolute, throw her down. If the host lands on both feet, it is considered a mission failure. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. It's impossible to get off even in death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. It's impossible to get off even in death. Laugh to death. She can't get off the car even if she dies. The driver noticed the impatience in Bian Jichen's voice and no longer hesitated, pulling hard on her arm. Jiang Chacha was so anxious that she started struggling hand and foot in hand. The driver is a skilled practitioner who moves quickly and quickly. Soon. At June 20th, 51 on a certain morning in 2022, Jiang Chacha was pulled out of the car in a beautiful posture with half of her body. A leather shoe fell in a round curve onto the main road, and her sock had a hole, revealing her embarrassed and shy toe, which was only 0.01 centimeters away from the ground. And the next second, the few thousand yuan she had stuck would disappear without a trace. In this long second, Jiang Chacha, wearing a mask of pain, struggled hard and turned her head to look at the cold man in the car. Bian Jichen had already put on noise-canceling headphones. He calmly read a book and casually flipped through a few pages, as if the noise outside the car had nothing to do with him. Elegant. Elegant to the extreme. Without comparison, there is no harm. But the next second, something touched him and broke this beautiful filter. I saw Bian Jichen lift his eyes, his face black as he looked at Jiang Chacha's hand tightly gripping his clothes. Let go. Jiang Chacha finally caught him. How could she let him go? So, this kind of scene appeared. The driver outside the car was relentlessly pulling on Jiang Chacha, who was clutching the car door, and Jiang Chacha used her milk-sucking strength to tightly grab Bian Jichen's shirt. The strength grew stronger and the scene became increasingly uncontrollable. Bian Jichen had never seen a woman with such great strength, nor had he ever seen a woman so crazy that she forcefully pulled open the collar of his shirt, revealing a large chest. He couldn't bear it anymore and was on the edge of anger, his cold face covered in black lines. Ginger tea. The driver didn't believe it anymore. Thinking of his impressive 170-pound man, he couldn't believe he couldn't pull off the ginger tea. He rolled up his sleeves and increased his strength. Bian Jichen's eyelids were jumping fiercely, feeling as if his shirt was about to be torn by the two of them. Even if it continued like this, he was not far away. He took a deep breath and gritted his teeth, saying, "Stop it all for me." The driver just stopped, but there was still a hint of unfinished competition on his face. "I scared her to death, almost." Jiang Chacha quickly sat back in place, her mind spinning rapidly, and she quickly came up with a solution. So she raised her phone and said, "If you take me to school, I will immediately clarify our relationship on the forum." Bian Jichen calmly tidied up the collar of his shirt and smiled faintly, "I'm tired of hearing all of your words. Isn't it? She's going to cry in a hurry. Big brother. You stop first." Jiang Chacha looked at the driver beside her, afraid that he would throw herself down in the next second. After speaking, her fingers clicked against the phone screen. Finally, click confirm. "Look." Jiang Chacha handed Bian Jichen her phone and immediately hugged the car door tightly, looking at him pitifully as if she had suffered a great deal of injustice. Bian Jichen. He averted his gaze and looked at the phone screen. Jiang Chacha posted a forum post on her own account. Given the clarification of some online rumors, the content is: recently, someone maliciously hyped up my relationship with classmate Bian Jichen, causing a great sensation. I would like to clarify that my friendship with Bian Jichen is pure and innocent. Please do not maliciously slander us anymore. Thank you for your concern. We are doing well. Love. Especially in the last sentence, there is a strong sense of public figures in the entertainment industry clarifying rumors. If it weren't for knowing that she had bought the Navy and spread rumors about him before, Bian Jichen would have almost believed it. He lifted his eyelids lightly, his eyes slightly darkened. I posted this message, and within a day, our rumor will be exposed on its own. Fearing that he would have to get off the car, Jiang Chacha hurriedly said, "Just take me to the school gate. After that, I won't bother you even if I die." Bian Jichen looked at her with a critical gaze for a moment. His scrutiny was highly inclined toward superiors, which made her feel uneasy. Finally, he lightly lifted his chin towards the driver, and the driver released her arm and returned to the driver's seat. She cautiously returned to her seat. After throwing his phone into her arms, Bian Jichen casually closed his eyes and said, "Take her to school first." "First? Are you going somewhere?" Jiang Chacha held her backpack and revealed a pair of curious eyes. Seeing Bian Jichen silent, he clearly didn't want to talk to this annoying young lady. So the driver could only answer her thoughtfully, "Our young master is going to have breakfast." Jiang Chacha fell silent as she remembered the 2 shabby pieces of bread in her backpack, without even a bottle of yogurt. She felt the unevenness of humanity. God, it's not fair at all. She's a bit emotional. Trigger a random character task. As a spoiled young lady, how can you just use 2 cheap breads to pass breakfast every day? Please try your best to have a delicate breakfast. She imagined what kind of breakfast the children of wealthy families would have. In an instant, various gorgeous and exquisite dishes from the TV series appeared in her mind one by one. As a bankrupt, she cast an envious gaze at Bian Jichen. Since we've all rubbed against the car, it's not too much to scrape a meal, right? So even Bian Jichen, whose eyes were closed, could feel the piercing, eager gaze from those around him. That gaze was too intense. He opened his eyes indifferently and said, "What's up?" Jiang Chacha blinked her eyes and said, "A noble toad invites you to share breakfast." Bian Jichen. If you are shy, you can agree politely, such as blinking your eyes. Bian Jichen felt his temples bulging and jumping. He rubbed his brow and said, "If you still want to take this train." Jiang Chacha doesn't give up, she really wants to have breakfast with Bian Jichen. What a rare experience. More importantly, she wants to enjoy a delicate aristocratic breakfast QAQ. She is poor and has never eaten. So she turned to her phone and fell into a deep contemplation. Then he began typing with a crackling sound. Bien, she proudly lifted her chin and raised her phone in front of him a minute later. If you don't let me share breakfast with you, then I'm going to post this. Bian Jichen casually glanced over. The content of the post reads: I'm sorry everyone, I had a disagreement with my family's Chen just now. It's all Chen's little interests, you understand. I'm sorry for taking up everyone's social space. I just want to tell you, we're still together, very sweet / love. His face gradually darkened. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The first day of being a maid. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The first day of being a maid. 1 hour later. At the entrance of the St. Sakura Noble School, amidst the screams of everyone, Jiang Chacha gracefully walked down from the Audi sedan. She turned around and looked at Bian Jichen in the car, whose smile was even brighter than today's sunshine. Thank you, Bian, for inviting Michelin breakfast. Bian Jichen's face was extremely foul-smelling. Others are spending money to alleviate disasters, while he is spending money to deal with a dog skin ointment. Seeing Bian Jichen's face becoming increasingly gloomy, Jiang Chacha said with a glint, "Don't worry, I won't delete that post in my lifetime. I used to be obsessed with it and didn't understand when I was young. I promise I won't harass you again in the future." After speaking, fearing that he would hold her accountable, she ran away in a disheartened manner. The car was very quiet, and Bian Jichen remained in his original position for a long time. Finally, he closed his eyes slightly with a hint of cold exploration in his eyes. His dark pupils reflect the girl's departing figure. Soon, it was covered with a dark layer of disgust. He brushed the fabric off his arm in disgust, calmly lowered his eyelids, and said, "Did you call the moving company?" The driver immediately replied, "It's already booked, just a few days. The old house is ready, young master can go back any time in the next few days." Bian Jichen let out a sigh. He lives in Qiwaiting because he is closer to the school. I just didn't expect that the neighbor on the upper floor would be the daughter of my mother's friend, let alone her so domineering and difficult to deal with. At first, he treated her with a brother-like attitude, thinking that she was not sensible. Later, her actions became more and more excessive, and in the end, he reached the point of extreme disgust. He said expressionlessly, "I'll go back to my old house tonight." His patience has reached its limit. He can no longer tolerate living in the same place as Jiang Chacha. Congratulations, you have completed the tasks of riding the border Jichen car and eating a luxury noble breakfast. Jiang Chacha breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, she managed to save a few thousand yuan. Walking in the vast campus, she felt a sense of confusion in her heart. Although she entered her favorite game, she was suddenly informed that she had gone bankrupt and had a debt of 100 million, but she still did not fully accept it. Now as long as you open your phone, you can see a bunch of payment reminder messages. She remembered the work task mentioned by the system. What we need to do now is to quickly conceal our identity and go to the Bian family to work as a maid for Bian Jichen, making money to repay the luxury debts owed by the original owner. As for that 1 billion, come back slowly in the future. The post she posted on the forum this morning seemed to cause a great sensation, with red dots popping up all the time, but she didn't even go to read it. Today, she was attending classes at school in an orderly manner, fearing that acquaintances of the original owner would notice her abnormality, but fortunately nothing happened and she was safe and sound. Strangely, after the original owner's father ran away, the outside world did not know the news of their family's bankruptcy. Perhaps that's the reason why she should bind this ghost system to do spicy chicken missions. Damn it. At the end of school, the system released tasks again. It's another day of school time. Please continue to take the luxury car and go home face to face. Still coming. I'm already in debt of 1 billion, how can I ride a luxury car? Jiang Chacha widened her eyes in anger. The servants of the Jiang family have all been scattered, and their luxury cars have also been sold to offset their debts. Where did she get her luxury car? If you don't take a luxury car to and from school, it will be considered a violation of character and will be punished. Jiang Chacha. I really appreciate it. Fortunately, methods always outweigh difficulties. She found a professional rental of luxury cars online. I added WeChat for consultation. This question subverts the worldview of ginger tea. Originally, renting a luxury car for a short day would cost over 1,000 yuan. Is this the world of the rich under the coercion and temptation of the system? She hesitated for a long time before finally clicking on the transfer. Within a few seconds, 1/3 of her assets were gone. Jiang Chacha's fingers have been trembling all along. If this continues, she doesn't know how many more days she can live in this world. She felt a strong sense of crisis, her eyebrows furrowed tightly. She must quickly earn money. Fortunately, tomorrow is Saturday, so I don't have to bear the cost of renting a car for the next 2 days. Returning to Qiwaiting and taking the elevator, she noticed several workers walking out carrying high-end furniture. She hesitated and asked, "What's wrong with this?" The worker replied, "This building is mainly for moving. It's like this. Eating melons is engraved in human DNA, and ginger tea is no exception." She immediately whispered, "Why did this homeowner move out?" In the game setting, this Qiwaiting is the most luxurious high-end residential area in the country, with exorbitant prices, and is close to a commercial area. Every inch of land and every penny of gold is worth living in. How could anyone want to move in? The younger worker saw that she was the owner here, which was a bit pleasing, so he looked disdainfully and pointed to his head, gossiping, "I heard, it seems that this owner has been tormented by the neighbor upstairs. This neighbor seems to have some mental problems." Jiang Chacha couldn't stop eating melons as soon as she ate them. Her eyes lit up with excitement, and she couldn't help but ask, "Which floor has the owner moved out?" "The 11th floor." A mover immediately returned enthusiastically. "The 11th floor." Just as she was still smiling, in an instant, her bright smile suddenly stiffened. The original owner lived on the 12th floor. Isn't she the neighbor upstairs from this homeowner? Wait, she remembers the system telling her that Bian Jichen was her neighbor and he lived downstairs from her. So, is it Bian Jichen moving? The neighbor with a bit of a brain problem is referring to her. Jiang Chacha's eyes instantly lost their light. She spent a long time digesting it after returning, gradually accepting this reality. Thinking of Bian Jichen hating her to the point of moving, she became even more introverted. Is she really that annoying? Although Bian Jichen targeted the original owner, she was also slightly hit. Before she came over, the system had already arranged a maid job interview for her in advance and passed several preliminary reviews. So she continued with the interview today. "I just didn't expect that wealthy families would be so strict when recruiting maids." Jiang Chacha felt like she was going bald, but fortunately, the system saved her some trouble behind the scenes. Due to Bian Jichen's wealthy parents being very busy and constantly in different places, the dozen or so servants in this villa only serve him as a wealthy young master. And one item in the assessment is to proficiently recite the owner's various preferences. The book that records Bian Jichen's preferences and habits is as thick as a book. But Jiang Chacha is a hardcore player of Love Story, and she has played various game sidelines several times. She doesn't believe there is anyone who knows Bian Jichen better than her. She knows that Bian Jichen even wet his pants in kindergarten. So he didn't even flip through the books and took the exam naked. She bit her pen and filled out the questionnaire. What color does Bian Jichen like? Black. Disgusting food. Of course it's eggplants and carrots. Favorite animals must be samoys whose smiles can heal everything. And he also keeps one at home. With this perfect answer sheet, Jiang Chacha passed the final round of interviews. And tomorrow, Saturday, will be her first day working as a livestock worker. Early in the morning, she began to tidy up and disguise herself. Laughing to death, she wanted to dress her up in a way that even her father, the original owner, couldn't recognize. After putting on a wig and ensuring that there was a pedestrian armor without any presence in the mirror, she set off. In order to save money, she took the bus, but fortunately, the dog system didn't have much to do this time. Finally, I hiked for a while before reaching the high-end villa of the Bian family. After entering the Bian family and changing into the uniform maid attire, she and the old servants went to the butler to report. With the help of the system, she can freely change the tone, as if possessing the skills of a voice actor. Combined with her exquisite makeup skills, she is definitely the least eye-catching one in the crowd. The old butler talked about the matter for a while and then began to arrange the morning division of labor. As for cleaning the servants' toilet, let's arrange. The old butler lifted his glasses. Jiang Chacha's eyes lit up, she tiptoed up and raised her hand, I'll go. So she volunteered to clean the entire bathroom of the villa without taking a breath. Finally, she was so tired that she sat on the ground, her nose rubbed into thin strips with a tissue, and her eyes instantly lost their light. She now feels like everything she drinks and eats has a smell of feces, and she wants to vomit. Host, don't be discouraged. If you persist today, I can pay you your salary, okay? Jiang Chacha thought, there is no servant in this world who is more curly than her. She specializes in doing the hardest and dirtiest jobs, and I don't believe she can still meet Bian Jichen. Bitter is a bit bitter, she endured it. At lunchtime, the old butler called them to gather and began to arrange division of labor. Jiang Chacha has nothing to do with herself. Anyway, she only chooses jobs that others don't want. Looking at the butler, she lazily yawned. Unexpectedly, the old butler looked at her with a relieved expression and said, you can go with them to serve the young master and have dinner. Ah, good. Jiang Chacha lazily yawned again. Wait, what did he just say? She looked up in shock. Serving Bian Jichen for dinner. She took a few deep breaths and forced a smile, butler, just arrange for me to clean up. Really, I love cleaning the restroom the most. I feel like I was born to clean the restroom. If I don't clean the restroom, I feel uncomfortable all over. I can't even eat for a day. Jiang Chacha was so anxious that she almost cried. The old butler was so moved that he almost cried. It's been a long time since I met such a good child. Willing to endure hardship and not showing off. Back then, he also came this way. The old butler remembered his bitter tears and sympathized deeply. No, he can't let this child continue to suffer injustice. He walked over and patted her shoulder in front of everyone, then generously praised her, look, this newcomer is so dedicated. The Bian family needs such a servant. Everyone should learn from her. Come, give me a round of applause. Thunderous applause erupted from the scene. Jiang Chacha's smile was even uglier than crying, no. The old butler had no room for negotiation and said, all right, you guys should go to the dining room now. Young master, it's almost time for dinner. Ginger tea is simply hopeless. If you try to evade further, it will actually arouse suspicion. So she had to grit her teeth and go with them. Knock. Isn't she going to be exposed to Bian Jichen and have nowhere to hide? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Young Master finally laughs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Young Master finally laughs. Jiang Chacha turned back 3 times in a step, blending in with the crowd, her eyes wandering aimlessly, racking her brains to find a solution. She suddenly had a flash in her mind, then covered her stomach with her hand, just about to pretend to be sick. Unexpectedly, the girl in front took the lead. She bent down to support the wall and didn't give Jiang Chacha a chance at all. No, I've eaten my stomach. Can you explain it to me when you go over later? Thank you. After speaking, she left with her legs clenched in pain, walking briskly. Ginger tea. Is this following someone else's path, leaving them with no way to go? Damn it, she took the lead. Jiang Chacha had already arrived at the entrance of the dining room, hesitating whether to enter. She was gently pushed by the girl behind her, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and get in. I saw Bian Jichen sitting at the dinner table, with black hair and deep eyes, sharp facial features, and a calm posture. At first glance, he was a highly educated nobleman. As I met yesterday, my body was filled with the radiance of a proud sun from heaven, my profile was clear, and a sense of alienation emanated from all around me. Bian Jichen was arranged to have dinner with his mother's friend's daughter today. Jiang Chacha noticed that the young lady across from her would blush shyly when she accidentally looked at Bian Jichen. It seems to be a secret promise from my heart. After observing for a while, she glanced at Bian Jichen, who was eating silently. She quickly lowered her head and tried to reduce her presence. Jokes. If Bian Jichen discovers that she is actually a malicious supporting woman, she will really be finished. The consequences are unimaginable. After standing for 10 minutes, Jiang Chacha realized that being a maid would make her back and waist ache all day long. She secretly turned her neck and stretched it. After she returns to the real world, she will definitely die and not engage in the service industry. Suddenly, the system sound appeared again. As a maid of a wealthy family, in order to receive a high salary, one must excel among maids and perform better than other colleagues at this time. She was unaware of the dangers of society. Jiang Chacha blinked her eyes and curiously asked, do you still need to be a maid? To excel, one must fully consider the owner at this moment. Your single dog master is having lunch with other girls. As a diligent maid, you need to match the two of them and show off your master's excellence. Therefore, this system has thoughtfully prepared the following lines for you. Jiang Chacha saw the next second of these lines and almost fainted. Fortunately, the maid beside her helped her in time and asked her anxiously in a low voice, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" If I had known that this dead system would take a beating and become such a monster, I wouldn't have hesitated if she died just now. Even if she died, she would have been ahead of that girl, occupying her pit and making her hold her feces and have to go to work. Jiang Chacha turned her head numbly and forced a smile at her, saying, "It's okay." The maid was immediately startled by her face, which was even uglier than crying, and swallowed with lingering fear. In the corner, Jiang Chacha seemed to have ADHD, rubbing her 10 toes against the ground at the same time, waiting for the opportunity to leave. Is it still possible to report to the police now? If you don't leave, there won't be enough time. Run away quickly. Miss Lin, who was dining with Bian Jichen, has been searching for topics to chat with. She talked about her daily life and talked about yesterday when she learned flower arrangement from a famous teacher, and tomorrow when she will go to learn the guqin. Bian Jichen calmly took a sip of black beer, but he was actually not interested in these topics, and even had no intention of chatting with her. But he will still smile appropriately when she stops speaking. The system seizes the timing and quickly issues commands. Host, it's now. Just now, Jiang Chacha and it have been arguing over their lines. Being forced to do so, she had no choice but to close her eyes in despair and learn the comforting tone of the butler in all the literature of the boss. Suddenly, she shouted loudly, "Young master!" Finally laughed. The whole scene was silent and lifeless. The senior maids around looked at the ginger tea standing in the middle with shocked eyes. Ha! What is she talking about? Does she know what she's talking about? The maids nervously lowered their heads and fell into a dead silence for a moment. Finally, Bian Jichen's movement of holding a knife and fork gradually stopped. His cold eyes looked inexplicably at the maid in the corner. After Jiang Chacha finished speaking, she immediately buried her head and bit her lips tightly, wishing it would bleed. Woo, I lost my life. She's going to shark the sand carving system. Only Miss Lin looked at her strangely and asked in confusion, What are you saying? Under pressure, Jiang Chacha stiffly lifted her head, but she didn't dare to glance at Bian Jichen in the main position with any remaining light, trying to focus her attention on this young lady. Host cheers. Please continue to recite your lines. You can do it, you have performed well. After saying this, your work for today is almost over. You will soon receive your first salary in life. Jiang Chacha could always feel the man's probing gaze. She choked her neck and looked at Miss Lin sincerely, revealing her mother's expression. She said earnestly, "My young master hasn't laughed so happily in a long time." Under the threat of the system, she added, sighing, "Young master, he never approached women before. I've never seen a young master so devoted to anyone before." Jiang Chacha wiped away the non-existent tears in her eyes with her hand, then turned to look at Miss Qianjin gratefully and said, "Now that you have appeared, I can rest assured." At this moment, the old butler who passed by to grab something suddenly stopped in his tracks. How could he have the illusion of being robbed of his lines? He suddenly developed a sense of crisis. Jiang Chacha's acting skills are somewhat exaggerated. However, Miss Lin's face was still flushed when she was told, and her voice decreased. "Is this true?" The maids were all staring at her in amazement, didn't they? The maid's acting was so clumsy and exaggerated, how dare you believe it? I have to dig my own pit and fill it myself, and even Jiang Chacha is about to choke out internal injuries, but I still have to maintain the standard smile of black toothpaste. It's true. In the eyes of my young master, miss, you are definitely the most unique existence. Under her eloquent tongue, Miss Lin felt embarrassed and restless, so she found an excuse to leave. Wow. Host, you're really amazing. You've made people shy. Go away, I don't really want to hear you talking now. After Miss Lin left, the dining room fell into a strange silence. Jiang Chacha kept her head down, as if a light was shining on her back. It's over, she's over. How should she face Bian Jichen? The luxurious and bright dining room made a metallic sound as knives and forks were placed. Jiang Chacha couldn't help but peek at him. I saw a noble young man slowly wiping the corners of his mouth with a tablecloth. His movements were pleasing to the eye, like an elegant art film. Bian Jichen exchanged his legs and casually placed his right leg on his left leg. His clear eyes glanced at her without any obstruction. End of this chapter. Chapter 6 Task. Speak out the quotes from Mr. Ba. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Task. Speak out the quotes from Mr. Ba. Help. Someone come and save her. Jiang Chacha looked at her nose, and heart, awkwardly picking her toes on the ground. The old butler walked up to her and sternly scolded her, "You're reckless. Do you know who that young lady is? That's the young master's guest. Do you know what you've said?" He quickly turned to Bian Jichen and said, "Young master, this is a new maid who doesn't understand the rules. I'll take her out and give her a good scolding now." Jiang Chacha's face turned pale with fear, and she pursed her lips without saying a word. Being wronged is quite unfair, after all, these are all things that the system forces her to do. However, what she is most worried about now is that her behavior just now completely caught Bian Jichen's attention. She was so nervous that she clenched her hand, and her palms were sweating profusely. She could still feel Bian Jichen's concrete and indifferent gaze falling on her, starting from her head and looking down, scanning her entire body. Her heart is beating faster. Is it possible that Bian Jichen discovered something after seeing her remain silent for so long? The old butler frowned, unable to understand what the young master was thinking now. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I'll send her away now." Jiang Chacha widened her eyes. Isn't it? She was persuaded to quit on her first day of work. What about the money she earns from working? It's not even settled yet. If the host resigns, today's salary will be reset to 0, and the system will not be able to issue your salary. I'm XXXX, beep. Due to the host's personal attack on this system, the language is extremely unpleasant and has been automatically silenced. Please speak up in a civilized manner. Jiang Chacha felt it was a miracle that she hadn't been angry to death. She clenched her hands around the hem of her skirt on both sides. If you resign, just resign. The big deal is to eat instant noodles these days. No, instant noodles are too luxurious. By Mantu. I still have so much debt on myself. How old is she? Jiang Chacha felt more and more aggrieved as she thought, tears swirling in her eyes. Just when she was feeling restless. No need, the man's deep voice reached her ears. She lifted her head in surprise and looked at him. Bian Jichen had already withdrawn his gaze and sat there calmly, sipping his black beer. Mom. This man seems to be shining. Jiang Chacha almost hugged his thigh and cried bitterly. As a result, she was scolded by the butler and fined a lot of work when she went out. Jiang Chacha feels that she has done more work today than in her lifetime. The only good news is that Bian Jichen really doesn't pay any attention to her, as if his sense of existence is zero. But soon, she was slapped in the face. Half an hour before leaving work, the butler asked her to bring coffee to Bian Jichen. Jiang Chacha's pupils tremble. Why me? She gritted her teeth and hinted wildly, Butler, are you not afraid that I will go crazy again? The old butler is speechless, so you still know. It was the young master who named you to go, he said with a foul expression on his face. Jiang Chacha almost bit her tongue. Okay, she knew she had done such an outrageous thing, how could Bian Jichen not notice her? Perhaps waiting for her to go over and ask for punishment. Can I not go? She felt that her life was even more bitter than bitter gourd. Seeing the old butler's face getting increasingly foul-smelling, Jiang Chacha took his coffee wisely and went upstairs to Bian Jichen's study. When Jiang Chacha was wandering outside the clouds on the way, the system sound came to mind. You have a task to receive due to the fact that in the gaming world, Bian Jichen is set as the future dominant CEO in the business world. However, on the way to becoming a dominant CEO, there was a slight deviation in the gaming world, which resulted in Bian Jichen not meeting the passing criteria for a dominant CEO. So, as a maid, your task is to help Bian Jichen become the new generation boss. Jiang Chacha was confused. What does it mean? She asked cautiously, are you talking about Mr. Ba, the kind of Mr. Ba who constantly touches the law and either wants someone to be buried or bankrupt every day? The system spoke in a surprised tone. Oh, how did you know? Startled, Jiang Chacha leaned against the wall, covering her heart and feeling a bit breathless. The heavens have no eyes, is this something that humans can do? How could someone be so insane as to cultivate a young boy who is as quiet as a breeze into a general information bully who keeps greasy quotes on his lips every day? Ginger tea has a feeling of its own cabbage being arched by the sow in the neighboring pigsty. She came to the study with a heavy heart, hesitated for a long time, and finally gathered the courage to knock on the door. In. The man's textured voice penetrated her ears through the thick door panel. When Jiang Chacha walked in with coffee, he saw him sitting in front of the desk. The dark gray curtain of the French window behind him was half closed, most of his body area was in dark shadow, and the hair behind his right ear was close to the light source, outlining the lines of light. Upon hearing the commotion, he didn't even lift his eyelids, and his hand holding the pen didn't know what was written on the paper. She took a deep breath and placed the coffee on the table, obediently saying, "Young master, this is your coffee." Bian Jichen didn't even lift his eyes, he didn't mention a word. Next, all that remained in the room was the faint sound of a pen swiping across the straight face. What does he mean now? Jiang Chacha was so nervous that she squeezed her hand tightly. Should she step down or wait here? The key is that he didn't say anything. She couldn't help but secretly look at him. Don't say, as he is blessed by the male lead aura, he is really handsome and miserable. Unfortunately, with such high-quality configuration, he will also become a domineering CEO in the national literature of, he chases, she runs, and she cannot fly. At the thought of this, Jiang Chacha felt heartbroken. Along with it, the filter on his body also broke. Bian Jichen lowered his head and wrote, only to find that the gaze on the side was too intense, so he looked up. Then I found that Jiang Chacha was looking at me with an extremely complex and difficult to talk about expression. Bian Jichen. How did he feel? Her gaze at him was so sad that he seemed to be dying soon. He put down his pen and asked lightly, "What's wrong?" Realizing that she had been caught, Jiang Chacha quickly shook her head and said, "Ah, no, it's okay." After speaking, she continued to look at herself with a heavy expression, and finally, she let out a long sigh. Bian Jichen. He would doubt whether he was about to die. Bian Jichen frowned and didn't delve deeper, continuing to write. Jiang Chacha stood on the side, her feet almost numb. "Dear, you have a to.do task. If you cannot complete it in just 1 hour, corresponding punishment will be imposed. In order to help your beloved young master become a leader as soon as possible, please encourage and guide Bian Jichen to say a quote from the leader." Who knows how messy Jiang Chacha was when she heard this sentence from the system. She really wants to type a question mark on the keyboard. Mr. Ba's quote. Jiang Chacha used her underdeveloped brain to review the literature of coquettish wives she had read in those years. Without exception, there are countless classic sayings such as, "Woman, you have successfully caught my attention," "Woman, who gave you the courage," "Woman, you are playing hard to get," and, "You are such a grinding little fairy." The thought of having Bian Jichen say to himself with a cold and noble face, "You grinding little fairy," the ginger tea filter shattered all over the ground, and I wished I could bang my head against the wall. The edge in her mind is not like this. Now the countdown is 58 minutes and 59 seconds. Please pay attention to the timing, host. Jiang Chacha took a deep breath and was almost crying. She couldn't bear to do such a thing to her white moonlight. She thinks she can save herself, she really can't bear to go through the motions. So she asked, "What is punishment?" She saw if she could sacrifice herself for love. 30 minutes of electric shock, 10 minutes of naked running. Stop talking, I'll do it. As soon as the system gave 2 examples, Jiang Chacha immediately retracted what he had just said. Goodbye, Bian Jichen. It's not that sister is willing to let you down, it's that sister must cut ties with the past. But the key is, what should she do to trigger Bian Jichen to say the quote from Mr. Ba? Every word was enough to die in society to leave the world, and Jiang Chacha secretly glanced at Bian Jichen, who was sitting at the desk with a clear and elegant demeanor. She felt that whenever Bian Jichen uttered any of the quotes from Mr. Ba, he might have wished to kill her on the spot. Realizing this, Jiang Chacha swallowed her saliva hard. Let him directly say the quote from Mr. Ba. Forget it, after playing games for so long, doesn't she still know Bian Jichen? With his temperament, it is absolutely impossible for him to actively say these words unless his head is caught in the door. Ginger tea is racking my brain. After 10 minutes, she finally came up with a barely feasible solution. During this short period of time, Bian Jichen could always sense that the maids around him were occasionally looking at him and hesitating to speak. He frowned and lifted his head. Jiang Chacha immediately showed a dog-leg expression. "Young master, I think you eat very little at noon, or I will ask Aunt Zhang to cook some congee for you now. Quickly agree. Otherwise, she will be punished by the system that receives thousands of dollars." Bian Jichen. The main thing was that her expectant gaze was too dazzling. He fell silent for a moment, but didn't notice anything was wrong. After a moment, he let out a sigh. The first step is to achieve it. Jiang Chacha silently exclaimed in her heart. Now let's move on to the second step. She went downstairs to the kitchen and told Aunt Zhang that the young master wanted to have congee. Aunt Zhang set about making it. Jiang Chacha was sneaky, looking left and right, and finally walked a lighter on the kitchen counter. Everything is ready. Everything went smoothly. Everything is ready except for the east wind. Soon, she took a bowl of millet porridge with perfect color, fragrance and taste back to the study. Seeing Jiang Chacha put congee on the table, Bian Jichen was still focusing on what was in front of him. His voice said without emotion, put it down, I'll eat it later, and you can go out. How can this work? Upon hearing these words, Jiang Chacha lifted her head in shock, and Xiaoji moved her emotions with reason. Young master is here alone, I'm not at ease. Let the old servant stay with him. No need, go out, Bian Jichen said coldly. How could a 36-degree mouth say such cold words? There are 10 minutes left, please make sure the host seizes the time. Jiang Chacha is in a hurry. If this continues, this blooming girl will not be far from running naked. So, she came up with a quick idea and said tactfully, young master, I've seen you solve problems for a long time. How about I help you relax and unwind? Bian Jichen's expression showed a hint of impatience. Jiang Chacha continued to fight for herself. To be honest, young master, I have undergone rigorous training in specialized decompression skills. As long as the young master accompanies me to play a game, that's all. The Bian family has very strict requirements for recruiting servants, and some even have their own areas of expertise, otherwise they will not break through the layers of selection. Upon hearing this, Bian Jichen crossed his legs and put his hands on them to close his palms. His bones were excellent, and his eyebrows and eyes were cold. After a moment, he said calmly, okay, how should we do it? Count down to 5 minutes. Jiang Chacha almost burst into tears of joy when she saw him willing to cooperate. As time ran out, Jiang Chacha coughed and posed a profound question. Young master, the first question. Am I a man or a woman? What kind of intellectual disability is this? Bian Jichen pulled his thin lips and was about to blow her away. Jiang Chacha said seriously, the simpler the question, the more effective it is. Please be patient and cooperate. Bian Jichen glanced at her sadly, and finally adjusted his sitting posture, his eyelids drooping. Woman. Okay, next, please have a look, esteemed young master. Seeing that the temptation was successful, Jiang Chacha was overjoyed and, like a trick, took out a lighter from her pocket. With a click, it opened. With a click, it closed again. With another click, it opened again. Bian Jichen felt that his intelligence had been severely insulted. There are only 3 minutes left, and Jiang Chacha is extremely anxious. She frantically played with the lighter and asked him, young master, what am I doing with this action? She looked at herself eagerly, while also squeezing her brows and eyes with great anticipation. Bian Jichen looked at her coldly, as if looking at a new species of humanity. Speak up, young master. Jiang Chacha was so anxious that she almost cried. Are you playing with fire? Bian Jichen said with patience, his face expressionless. The lost light in Jiang Chacha's eyes suddenly lit up again. She nodded with satisfaction and her heart quickened with excitement, encouraging him to continue speaking. So, what is this answer, reading it together with the answer to the same question. Finally, he hesitated for a moment and said, woman, are you playing with fire? When he said this, Jiang Chacha could clearly feel that the indoor temperature immediately dropped by 20 degrees. Bian Jichen looked at her tightly, his gaze icy as if he were looking at a dead person. Jiang Chacha's legs trembled with fear and she silently swallowed her saliva. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Women disguising men's clothing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Women disguising men's clothing. When the prompt sound of completing the task appeared in her mind, Jiang Chacha felt that her dignity as a human was barely preserved. However, if Bian Jichen hadn't said to himself with his face so cold that it could drop ice, "Don't let me see you again," that would have been even better. After saying these cold words, Bian Jichen was thrown out of the study in just 10 seconds. The task was completed, but her career with Bian Jichen has come to an end. Jiang Chacha was about to cry without tears. She just looked at her watch and found that she had only a few minutes left to finish work. Woo-woo, the unscrupulous system, destroy her innocence. In order to redeem her little goodwill in Bian Jichen's heart, she shouted at the door. Young master, wait for me, I will help you heat congee. After speaking, she arrived at the stairs and was about to turn when she noticed a furry unidentified animal approaching her not far away. Ah. It's little 8. Xiao 8 is the Sammy raised by Bian Jichen. It seems to know it's cute and is grinning. Jiang Chacha's heart was about to melt, so she crouched down and excitedly touched it. Woo woof. Small 8 surrounded her, reached the bowl of congee in her hand, and shook her tail vigorously. So Jiang Chacha blinked her eyes. When Bian Jichen finished playing the game, the sky outside the window had already turned into dusk. He rubbed his tired eyes and suddenly felt a strong hunger in his stomach. Inexplicably, he remembered the radiant smile on the maid's face, just like the sun. And her abnormal brain. Suddenly, she recalled that she was going to help him heat congee. He frowned. It has been 20 minutes now. So Bian Jichen stood up, and as soon as he walked out of the door, he found his dog squatting there, not knowing what it was doing. Little 8. Bian Jichen chuckled lightly, just about to bend down to touch its head. Just when he first saw it, his pupils contracted violently. A few seconds later, a visible crack appeared on the handsome face. His dog was happily licking the bowl of congee that was to be given to him. When he saw him, Xiao 8 raised his head and smiled at him. Seeing his gaze growing deeper and more complex as he watched its food, little 8 realized and generously slapped the dog's paw on the bowl, warmly inviting him to eat together. Bian Jichen's lips pursed into a tight line, and his expression was so rich that he could make a reading comprehension. His mind flashed with Jiang Chacha's dog-legged smiling face. So he walked downstairs expressionlessly and searched the entire villa, but couldn't find Jiang Chacha. He called the butler over and gritted his teeth, asking, "Where's that maid?" The old butler was a bit confused and just replied, "Ah, did the young master mean she's new here? She's already gone home from work." Bian Jichen. Very good. The white horse passed by a gap, and in the blink of an eye, the sun had already set westward. Jiang Chacha, who was on her way home from work, didn't know what had happened to her family. System voice cheers. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing today's work task. Please check your salary for this time. According to the checkout, you have received a total of 200,000 renminbi, which has now been deposited into the host's bank account. Jiang Chacha's eyes lit up. She used to only have 1,000 living expenses per month in high school, but suddenly felt that this was not bad. She earned 200,000 yuan in just one day of work. She first paid the water and electricity bills and property management fees at home, and then returned one or two cheaper luxury items. Finally, she found that she only had a few tens of thousands of dollars left. She has refunded all the luxury goods that the original owner bought, but most of them cannot be refunded. When repaying, Jiang Chacha was in excruciating pain. How much does the noblewoman spend in a day? And she will rent a luxury car to pick up and drop off from school in the future. She tested the system and said, "Well, in my opinion, renting a luxury car to school is too expensive. How about we save it?" "No way. As a noblewoman, how could you not take a luxury car to school? This is not in line with character, please dispel this idea." Jiang Chacha's initial thoughts were forcefully extinguished and she was stillborn. Upon returning home, Jiang Chacha collapsed on the bed exhausted. Suddenly, she received a message. She clicked on it and saw that it was sent by a small assistant who had a similar odor to the original owner. "Vice President, I helped you grab someone else's front row seat for tomorrow's piano performance by Cheng Yi at school. Did you grab it?" Jiang Chacha swallowed her saliva and edited a sentence. "Is it really good to grab it?" Then she silently withdrew. After all, the original owner was a stinky dog poop, and as her first follower, she was definitely not a good thing. If she said this, she would be suspected instead. Has the original owner arranged for someone to go and watch Cheng Yi's piano performance tomorrow? When the water boiled, she soaked herself with noodles and chewed open the package of soy egg. Cheng Yi, also the top male lead of Girl's Mind. Born from a prestigious family, with his father being the richest man and his mother being a renowned musician, he inherited his mother's musical talent and, under the guidance of his parents, became a world-renowned piano genius. However, in the past, when Jiang Chacha was playing this second game, although every dog man was damn charming, she would always choose to date Cheng Yi in the end. Because Cheng Yi is really pitiful. Every time I think back on my journey, Jiang Chacha not only sees his perfect hands like artworks, but also the slender figure on the dazzling stage that thousands of people have watched, as well as every sound of his slight cough, which breaks her heart. Perhaps he was too perfect, so God closed his other window. God gave him a pair of hands that were born to be pianists, but he gave him a concrete and sickly body. The illness brought him pain, and every time Jiang Chacha scrolled through the love line of Qing Xian, she felt extremely heartbroken. Every day, she crazily cursed the planning team in a super chat, and even changed her username to, "Can we let Qing Xian go of the mind planning today?" Especially as he covered his mouth, his wet eyes turned slightly red, and his painfully furrowed brow relaxed. He comforted her with a smile and gently shouted, "Sister, you came to see my performance." Clearly aware that these plotlines, as well as his illness, were specially designed by the game planning team to win their sympathy, but every time Jiang Chacha strongly empathizes and incorporates them. Every time other men were jealous of her, while Cheng Yi remained in the corner without hesitation, quietly smiling at her, as if unwilling to see a sad expression on her face. Cheng Ting is too well behaved, being so well behaved is heartbreaking. Jiang Chacha was so excited that she sucked heavily on her face. So, she can see Cheng Gui's little angel tomorrow. However, I work part-time for 4 male leads. Bian Jichen works as a maid beside him, so what does she do for Cheng Yi? Jiang Chacha couldn't think of it for a moment, so I consulted the system briefly. Due to his special identity in the fact that his family has had enemies for generations, Cheng Yi often encounters assassination attempts from others. In addition, he is a top-tier pianist and often travels, so he needs a bodyguard with strong martial arts skills. Startled, Jiang Chacha sprayed out all the tea in her mouth. She looked at her delicate body, which was powerless, and couldn't believe it. "Are you sure I'm capable of handling this profession? Wait. Are you sure you have a female bodyguard? This part-time job requires the host to dress up as a man. Considering the host's physical condition, this system has collected various martial arts books, including Chinese martial arts, European swordsmanship, judo, karate, Thai boxing. Everything is available, ensuring the host's satisfaction. The materials have been distributed. Please complete the learning within a few days and possess the qualities of a world-class pianist bodyguard. The requirements of the system are simply being convoluted. In these few short days, she is so terrifying that she can't even learn any basic moves, right?" Jiang Chacha gritted her teeth in anger, feeling that this old sick system was really a pit father. Just as she cursed softly, she played with her phone for a while and logged into her WeChat account, which was specially designed to be used as a work account. I casually browsed through the messages in my colleague group and then found that there was an extra red dot in the address book. At first, she couldn't recognize who it was just by looking at the avatar, but when she saw the verification message with only a cold and unconventional edge, she knew who this was. Jiang Chacha bit her finger. What is Bian Jichen doing with her? Not wanting to do too much, she clicked to agree with her friend's verification and quickly finished sucking up the instant noodles. After a brief tidying up, she lay back on the bed and slept on it. It's Monday when I wake up. Another beautiful Monday. Please continue to take the luxury car to school. Jiang Chacha gritted her teeth and suddenly renewed her lease for a few days. At 7:20 in the morning, a red Ferrari rushed over and parked at the school gate in a very coquettish manner. Jiang Chacha walked out of the car wearing limited edition sunglasses in the bright sunlight. Due to the game setting, the original protagonist is comparable to the campus social queen in American dramas. No matter how she tries to hide, she still has to face the original protagonist's fox friends and dog friends. For example, now, Lin Xiaoxiao, the first follower of the original owner, is standing at the school gate waiting for her. Lin Xiaoxiao walked over and said in exaggerated language, "Wow, Vice President, your family has a new car again." Jiang Chacha pretended to wave her hand humbly, feeling praised in her heart, "No, no, no. Next time I'll take your car, let's go out and play." Jiang Chacha's wildly upturned lips immediately stiffened. Knock. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have pretended to be forced. Next time, isn't she going to rent for a longer time? She seemed to hear the sound of coins falling to the ground. She slowly nodded and forced a smile, good. Next, Jiang Chacha gritted her scalp and adhered to the principle of less disclosure than exposure. She allowed Lin Xiaoxiao to be passionately beside her, while she always nodded mysteriously. Lin Xiaoxiao didn't notice anything unusual, and in the end she said a bomb-like sentence, "Vice President, why don't we skip class?" Jiang Chacha, who was used to being honest in reality, seemed to have heard a bomb explode. She looked up in shock and said, "Skipping class?" Lin Xiaoxiao looked at her with a, "That's not very normal," expression and said, "Yeah." Startled, Jiang Chacha dared not speak. She calmly let out a sigh, but in reality, her heart was in turmoil. What's going on? Isn't the original owner still the vice president of some student union? Can we really skip class? This touches on the knowledge-blind spots of the three good students. Ginger tea. Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly pulled her into the grass, handed her a camera, and asked her to quickly aim at the road across from the school gate. Why? Jiang Chacha looked up at the camera vaguely, completely unaware of the situation. In the camera, a Maybach parked on the roadside. Bian Jichen was pushing open the car door and walking down. He first leaned against the car door and lowered his head to play with his phone. Some people, just a simple action, seem to have become pleasing to the eye through careful close-up of a movie. Ginger tea can't help but accelerate its heart rate. Suddenly, Bian Jichen put away his phone and walked slowly towards them with his long legs in suit pants. The beautiful face of the couple in the camera is also slowly zooming in and approaching. Jiang Chacha sees blush reddening, and she can clearly see the strong outline of his facial features, as well as immersively appreciate his narrow eyes. It's like having illegitimate food. Having illegitimate meals. Wait. What is she doing now? She's secretly filming Bian Jichen. At this moment, the eyes in the camera looked over accurately, their gaze becoming cold and sharp, and they squinted. Jiang Chacha was scared, her palms were sweating with nervousness, and her fingers began to tremble. So, her twisted hand pressed the shutter button. There was a deathly clicking sound at the scene. She wants to die. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Vice President of the Student Union. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Vice President of the Student Union and Bian Jichen, at this moment, is only 5 meters away from her. That is to say, as long as he lowers his chin slightly, he can have a clear view of the two of them squatting in the grass. Remembering that she was still working as a maid in his house wearing a vest yesterday, Jiang Chacha's body trembled even more violently. The more contact you have with Bian Jichen at school, the greater the likelihood of her vest being exposed. Who in the world can recognize you at a glance? It must be the person who knows you the most. Before Lin Xiaoxiao could react, she was covering her eyes and nervously asking, "Bian Jichen didn't see us, did he?" Ginger tea. She had no idea that Lin Xiaoxiao gave her a camera and pulled her here to secretly shoot Bian Jichen. Recalling the assurance she had made to Bian Jichen with her resolute attitude before, she felt even more longing. She felt that she needed to salvage her image. So she coughed and looked at Lin Xiaoxiao with a resentful expression. "Xiaoxiao, how could you let me do such a thing?" Lin Xiaoxiao opened his eyes and said, Vice President, didn't you say that we have to squat here every day and secretly take sexy photos of Bian Jichen, so that you can watch him fall asleep every night? She could feel Bian Jichen's gaze falling on her, becoming increasingly cold. When you listen to ginger tea, your eyes turn black. It's over, now she can't explain clearly. Lin Xiaoxiao turned around and only then noticed the Buddha in front of her. She was so scared that she immediately covered her mouth and said, Lie down. Vice President, it seems like we have been discovered. You just found out. Jiang Chacha felt like her head was so low that she was about to reach into the ground. Ginger tea. After a moment, a few words slowly came out of the man's mouth. Every word feels particularly oppressive. Jiang Chacha jumped up from the ground like a primary school student caught by the teacher. I'm here. Bian Jichen was even calmer than she had imagined. He carefully pondered what Lin Xiaoxiao had just said, You stay here every morning, secretly taking pictures of me. Jiang Chacha gritted her scalp and said, It seems so. Seems like that. How did she know that the original owner would be so perverted? Every day, she secretly shoots him here. Bian Jichen's extremely beautiful eyebrows finally furrowed, and a naked annoyance appeared in his eyes. It has been found that Bian Jichen's favorability has decreased by 10, and currently it is 0.110. Jiang Chacha, haven't you given up yet? Jiang Chacha was taken aback for a moment. She remembered the flag she had set against Bian Jichen before. He must have mistakenly thought he still liked him and wanted to continue playing around. Unfair. She looked at the culprit Lin Xiaoxiao with a resentful gaze, but to her surprise, the goods had already hidden behind a big tree 10 meters away, staring at them from a distance. Jiang Chacha's heart turned to ashes. After a quick thought, she looked at Bian Jichen with righteousness and held up the camera in front of her. Bian, listen to my explanation. I didn't come to secretly take pictures of you this time. After deep reflection, I decided to change my ways, so I handed you the physical evidence of my previous sins. I will definitely change my face from now on and not appear in front of you to stain your eyes. She has never had such a strong desire for survival in her life. Bian Jichen glanced at her expressionlessly, as if pondering the credibility of her words. He reached out his hand and gestured for her to bring it over. Jiang Chacha was overjoyed and quickly placed the camera in his hand, as if it were a hot potato. The camera was heavy and took up space, so ginger tea inevitably touched his hand. His fingers are very dry, but they have the warmth of chestnuts scorched by the sun. She has a feeling of being electrocuted. The young man's hands were slender and clean, and his knuckles were like jade. She couldn't help but sneak a few more glances. Bian Jichen also felt the soft touch of his fingers. He pursed his lower lip, rotated his black leather shoes, and leaned down. Then he lowered his eyes and pressed the playback button on the camera with his fingers, starting to look at the photos inside. Getting close, Jiang Chacha can see his long eyelashes clearly in the light. This is really human eyelashes. How could it be so long? She heard the sound of her saliva swallowing. Bian Jichen originally looked at her calmly, but then he stopped pressing the play button and finally looked at her with a gloomy expression. Jiang Chacha, what is this? Jiang Chacha was puzzled and took the initiative to poke her head over, watching the screen with him. At first glance, she almost had her soul out of her body and left this beautiful earth. I saw a high-definition shower photo of Bian Jichen on the camera screen. He was coming out of the pool, his wet hair giving him a wild and flamboyant vibe, and he was wiping his face with a towel. And his 8 sexy abs are clearly photographed. It should have been taken secretly by the original owner while Bian Jichen was attending a swimming class. Help! Who will save her? How could she know that the original owner was filming this kind of thing? If I had known it was like this, she wouldn't have let Bian Jichen see it. Jiang Chacha felt that she could make up for it a bit more. Bian, please listen to my explanation. Bian Jichen's favorability rating is 0.10. I have absolutely no ulterior motives for taking these pictures. Bian Jichen's favorability rating is 0.20. It's not something, it's just art. Bian Jichen's favorability rating is 0.50. Jiang Chacha. It's numb, she's rotten. Bian Jichen's thin lips pursed into a cold and hard straight line. He squeezed the camera tightly, gave her a disgusted look, and then walked away with his long legs. Leave ginger tea there and be autistic. That's it, she was misunderstood by Bian Jichen again. Lin Xiaoxiao saw that Bian Jichen, who was like a god of death, had finally left. He ran over and asked, "Vice President, how are you doing? Today's photo of Bian Jichen is enough for you to sleep with it at night, isn't it? Please shut up quickly." The unhappy parting with Bian Jichen made Jiang Chacha feel quite depressed all day long. She lay on the table, like a deflated balloon, without any energy. When school was over, Lin Xiaoxiao ran over and told her that Cheng Yi's concert was about to start. Upon hearing this, she immediately resurrected with blood. Where? Where? Cheng Yi, baby, sister has come to find you. Jiang Chacha immediately urged Lin Xiaoxiao to rush over without stopping. Cheng Yi's piano concert was held at the music building of St. Sakura Academy. When Jiang Chacha arrived, she found that there was a sea of people outside the building, comparable to the entertainment industry star-chasing scene. Jiang Chacha remembered that he is an international piano genius, and with the perfect appearance bestowed by God, how could he not have fans in school? When Jiang Chacha was apologizing for accidentally stepping on the other person's shoe just now, Lin Xiaoxiao immediately pulled her out of the crowd and went straight to the internal personnel passage, taking the elevator directly. She finally remembered that she was still the vice president of the student union at this school. It's still a considerable official position, great. Jiang Chacha forgot what kind of mood she was in when she went to the concert hall. She only knew that Cheng Ting could be seen at a glance in her crowd. He stood in the center of the crowd, wearing a clean and spotless white shirt, as if sensing something. Looking from a distance, his eyes were like glass beads, as if covered in dust, exuding indescribable sadness. Jiang Chacha's heart seemed to be touched. Immediately after, she saw the person next to him roughly grabbing his shirt collar. Someone was smashing the meticulously arranged concert venue behind them, and the flowers given by fans were knocked over on the stage. And he always had fine white eyelids hanging down, obedient to adversity. At this moment, the ginger tea was ignited, and she was so angry that her fingers trembled. She stepped forward to stop it and said, "Stop it. What are you doing?" Everyone else looked at her with a strange expression. "Who made you do this?" She was so angry that she couldn't even straighten her tongue. In an eerie silence, someone finally spoke up. He looked at Jiang Chacha cautiously and inexplicably. "Vice President, didn't you ask us to smash Cheng Ting's venue?" Ginger tea. The bad person is actually myself. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Male lead Cheng Yi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Male lead Cheng Yi. Seeing her stunned, someone kindly added, "Vice President, it wasn't you who instructed us early. Today is Cheng Yi's piano concert, so we must not let him feel better. Isn't that what you said?" Jiang Chacha's mind crashed instantly. Help. What did the original owner do again? How come every time she does something, it makes her jump up and down like a snake? Jiang Chacha still has some impressions of the game plot. She remembers that the relationship between the original owner and Cheng Xian was not harmonious, otherwise Cheng Xian wouldn't hate her, but she didn't even explain the specific reason when playing games. Now, she finally knows why. Let her calm down. In the game setting, the original owner was the arrogant and domineering vice president of the student union, who often caused trouble and stirred up resentment among the campus people for a long time. However, she also had a group of brainless and fanatical fans behind her, which was the foundation for her ability to make waves. This group of fans regard the original owner's horse head as a saddle, and some are even crazy, willing to humbly lift shoes for the original owner. As long as the original owner doesn't like anyone, that person will become the target of criticism from the original owner's fan support club. The original owner was used to being arrogant at school, and her father was the biggest shareholder of the school. Apart from being angry, there was no substantial solution. I just didn't expect that the boy she liked would suffer these things. She became the source of pain for Cheng Yi. She clenched her palm and couldn't help but look at Cheng Ting. I saw the young man not looking back, the perpetrator still pulling at his collar. He still lowered his head, not even lifting his eyelids, his lips pale, with only a faint blood color remaining on his lips. At this moment, Jiang Chacha felt extremely distressed. She wanted to stop it immediately, but was also worried that it would be extremely out of character with the original owner, afraid of arousing suspicion from others. So she came up with a quick idea. She raised her chin and portrayed the spoiled and stubborn young lady to the fullest. Stop it all for me. I have changed my mind now. Let him go today. I just want to listen to him play the piano well today. Seeing the vice president suddenly not playing cards as usual, everyone else was stunned and didn't know if to stop their movements. Cheng Ting, who had been motionless, lifted his eyes and looked at her. Seeing them motionless, Jiang Chacha gritted her teeth and said, "Didn't I listen to what I said?" Everyone just came to their senses and stopped one after another. On the other hand, they are also afraid that she will lose her temper like before, and now they are all PTSD towards her. The person finally loosened Cheng Yi's collar. At the moment when Jiang Chacha suddenly let go of her hand, she saw Cheng Ting take a step back before she could stabilize his movements. His body was even thinner than she had imagined, and the young man's limbs were slender and beautiful, like upright bamboo growing. Jiang Chacha walked quickly towards him. Hearing the sound of footsteps, Cheng Yi turned over and finally looked over. He seemed to have been punched, with a slight wound on the corner of his mouth that was oozing blood. When he saw her, he coughed a few times before showing her a harmless smile. "Vice President, if you're okay, can you leave now? I'm going to play soon," he said. Despite the fact that the original owner had hurt him, he remained gentle and showed a beautiful expression that was heartbreaking in the face of such a wicked person. Jiang Chacha bit her lip and tried to hold back, urging herself not to hug him. How could he be so gentle? Shouldn't he scold her hard now? She quickly asked someone to bring a chair over and put it in front of him. Cheng Ting looked at her inexplicably. The beautiful cat's eyes narrowed slightly. Jiang Chacha reached out and said, "Sit down." He looked at her again. After a while, the strange color in Cheng Ting's eyes disappeared without a trace. He sat down slowly, then covered his mouth and coughed gently again. Behind him, leaning against the window, the sunlight fell on him, making him as fragile as glass. Jiang Chacha poured a cup of hot water and handed it to him, looking like an old mother. Cheng Yi. Jiang Chacha looked guilty and looked forward to looking at him, hoping that he could drink some water, as if her inner guilt would decrease a bit. "I am truly flattered." She looked like a cold venomous snake suddenly showing goodwill, not showing much sincerity. Cheng Yen lowered his eyes, took it, and then lightly tugged his lips. "Thank you." Jiang Chacha was extremely anxious and urged others to quickly find the medicine box. How could such a perfect face of her cub get hurt? She absolutely cannot tolerate it. Cheng Gimo silently held the cup to his mouth, only letting the water wet his lips. At this moment, he heard the clamor outside. A group of students have arrived to watch the piano concert. He moved his wrist. As soon as Jiang Chacha turned around, she heard a piercing cracking sound. Suddenly, Cheng Ting's wrist seemed to lose strength, his cup was knocked over, glass shards splattered everywhere, and hot water poured down his body. The hot water reddened the back of his fair hands, and he coughed violently. His spine arched slightly, and from her perspective, he could see his beautiful neck curve. At this moment, his face was pale, and his fingers were covering his lips. His wet eyes, as if enveloped in morning mist, looked at her with slightly red corners. I saw a hint of anger in his weak voice and said, "Miss Jiang, can you stop doing this in the future?" Although the sound was not loud, the fans behind them could hear it. Jiang Chacha was instantly foolish. In a short period of time, the student standing at the door immediately imagined the scene of the vice president splashing hot water on Cheng Yi. And their pitiful senior Cheng was insulted by the vice president and kept swallowing his anger. Now that he has violated his bottom line, he only spoke an angry word softly. Even anger is so gentle and kind. It's really so pitiful. For a moment, ginger tea caused public anger. Quickly, someone stood up and angrily said, "Vice President, what are you doing? Vice President, do you really think that Sakura College is owned by your family?" Jiang Chacha innocently pointed to herself. What did she do? Cheng Ting bent down and coughed several times. He pulled his lips and showed a weak smile. "Don't be angry, I think the vice president didn't mean to." He said it and coughed, all of which went to the heart. He continued to work hard and poured another handful of oil, pushing everyone's anger to its peak. "It's all my fault, I made the vice president unhappy." Jiang Chacha shocked her face. Sigh. It's okay if Cheng Yi doesn't explain, but as he explains, it gets darker and darker. Like being bullied and still feeling wronged, seeking forgiveness for others. Woo-woo, he is so kind. That's really too much. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation, and countless pairs of angry eyes turned to Jiang Chacha, who was still in a daze. At this moment, Cheng Ting coughed again. He lowered his eyes, and a faint hint of disgust and mockery appeared in his black and white eyes. The corners of his lips, which were covered by his slender fingers, curled viciously. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Jiang Chacha. Presumably, the arrogant vice president, it's time to tear off his disguise and reveal his angry and ugly face. It only takes a few seconds. He opened his lips slightly and silently counted down. 3, 2, 1. Unexpectedly, Jiang Chacha, who was standing opposite him, just blinked his eyes and did not show the expected anger and embarrassment on his face. Instead, he lifted his feet and walked towards him. She had an unexpected worried expression in her eyes. She walked over, grabbed his scalded hand, and nervously asked, "Are you okay? Does it hurt?" When she bent down, her soft long hair hung down, and a few of them landed on his wrist, itching. At the same time, accompanied by a faint fragrance of a young girl. Cheng Yi's pupils contracted violently, and the harmless smile on his face almost couldn't be sustained. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Perfume of Vice President. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Perfume of Vice President. The noise at the door gradually quieted down with her movements, as if someone had pressed the automatic mute button. The smile on Cheng Yi's lips gradually faded. The beauty of the vice president is recognized by all students at Sakura College, and the position of the first goddess is still unshakable. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many brainless fans obsessed with her behind her. At this moment, Jiang Chacha's exquisitely enlarged face appeared in front of him, her skin as smooth and white as pearls, and her slightly parted lips like rose petals. Cheng Ting was stunned for a moment, then uncontrollably squeezed his hand, his eyes flashing with disgust. He lowered his head and coughed violently again, pulling his hand outwards to struggle out of her hand. Unexpectedly, Jiang Chacha clenched his hand even tighter, and the girl's hand became strong and warm at this moment. She asked more worried, "Cheng Ting, are you okay?" She suddenly placed her other hand on his back and gently patted him, hoping to make him cough more comfortably. He was originally trying to get rid of her, but unexpectedly, he brought her closer to him and even placed that dirty hand on his back. The fingers separated from the thin shirt, causing him to get goosebumps for a while. This woman not only didn't know how to restrain herself, but also got closer to him. He could clearly see her cute lips. Cheng Yi's face was delicate, and he coughed even harder with anger. In front of so many people, he's not good at getting angry. So he gently placed his hand in front of her, lowered his head, coughed lightly, and smiled warmly, "I'm fine." He felt a strange feeling in his heart, and according to his usual self-indulgent personality with ginger tea, he had already become angry and embarrassed. He squinted his eyes and looked at her face. The girl's beautiful eyebrows were tightly locked, and her worried expression seemed genuine. He raised his eyebrows silently. Could it be that this was a new trick learned by the vice president? He continued to cough weakly, his face turning pale. The resilient and fragile feeling in the boy's body was heartbreaking. He gently said, "Vice President, I won't appear in front of you again in the future, and I won't make you angry anymore." This pursuit of perfection made the group of fans at the door angry again. They all glared angrily and were about to come over to condemn Jiang Chacha. "Don't be angry, okay?" Cheng Yi bit his pale lips. Unexpectedly, Jiang Chacha brought a clean towel the next second and interrupted his next sentence. Jiang Chacha was heartbroken. How could she let the young man who had been guarding the game for so long get hurt? She wiped away the water stains on his clothes with a gentle force like cotton, as if afraid of hurting him. Cheng Yi frowned and stared deeply at her, his eyes penetrating as if he was about to stare a hole out of her. Her behavior made those fans who had just come over to criticize her scold, neither scolding nor not scolding. They all looked at each other and doubted whether today's vice president had taken the wrong medicine. Finally, she wiped him dry and applied some ointment to the back of his hot red hands. Finally, she wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, "All right." Cheng Yi pursed his lips and looked at her with a strange expression on his face. Suppressing his anger, he stood up silently and stepped onto the stage. The farce was over, and it was time for him to start playing. I played several songs in a row, and at the end, the last note had just fallen. Jiang Chacha, who was sitting in the front row below the stage, suddenly stood up, applauded excitedly and shouted, "Ah, Cheng Ting. You're amazing. You are the best." Her support club fans were all dumbfounded. Not only that, she needs to call her support club fans together to support Cheng Yi. The fans looked at each other with big eyes, and then stood up tacitly, shouting even more cheerfully. It's like partying and dancing in a nightclub. Cheng Yi's clear eyes gradually deepened. He became even more silent and pursed his pale red lips. The hand placed on the black and white keys was quietly tucked back into his shirt sleeve. I have a physiological aversion to ginger tea, so much so that every time I hear her say a word, it gives me a nauseating goosebump. Ginger tea is so excited that others feel like they are fake fans. The people next to her seat silently moved away from her. There's no way, she's too excited. Sitting next to her is a bit embarrassing. Jiang Chacha felt that tears were about to come out of her eyes just now while listening to Cheng Yi play the piano. Just like in the game, Cheng Yi's musical talent is innate and surpasses the existence of ordinary people. When he played the piano in the light, the world seemed to come to a standstill. When the enthusiasm for ginger tea had not yet dissipated, a cold system prompt sound appeared. Upon inspection, it was found that Cheng Ting's favorability has plummeted by 100, and currently the total is .300. How could it be? Jiang Chacha couldn't believe it and exploded on the spot. How could it be that she is so kind to Cheng Yi? And how could a kind and gentle Cheng Yi possibly hate her? The cognition of ginger tea was instantly destroyed. Yes, she is a notorious malicious female supporting character in the game. Even a kind-hearted person like Cheng Yi would hate her. On the other side, Cheng Yi got into his own car. He sat in the back seat, took out a handkerchief, blackened his delicate face, and vigorously wiped his hands smeared with ginger tea ointment. The car drove for several minutes, and after getting on the highway, he continued to stiffen his limbs, repeating this action rigidly. He pursed his lips, wiping so hard that the back of his hand was about to be rubbed, turning red and still didn't stop. Finally, he frowned in disgust and disinfected his hands. After finishing, he closed his eyes against the seat, and finally felt uneasy. He looked down and sniffed the white shirt on his body, as if he smelled a smell of perfume. The touch of the girl's fingers on his back seemed to remain on it. His harmless face showed a gloomy expression. Drive faster, I need to go back and take a shower. In the past few days, Jiang Chacha has been hit hard. When she returned home, she collapsed directly on the bed, burying her head with a pillow, trying to escape. Both Bian Jichen and Cheng Yi avoided her. Even if I saw her from afar, I would shift my gaze and take a detour. Jiang Chacha thought dejectedly that even though she was a bunch of annoying and stinky dog poop, she was not very good at saying so. During this period, she received several collection phone calls. The other person asked cautiously, "Miss Jiang, the Chanel bag you ordered has been delivered to you for 2 weeks now. I don't know when you can." The salesperson felt strange in his heart. How could a wealthy lady delay payment for so long? It shouldn't be. Jiang Chacha, who was burdened with $1 billion debt, was so nervous that she clenched her hands. In the end, she straightened her neck confidently and said with the aura of a billionaire lady, "What's the rush? It's just one bag. I've been interested in a few bags from your store recently, so I'll place an order and settle the bill together." As soon as she heard that she needed to buy a few more luxury bags, the sales voice immediately became sweet. They kept saying yes and asked her to come to the store when she had time, and opened a VIP channel waiting for her. Jiang Chacha let out a lazy hum. After hanging up the phone, she breathed a sigh of relief. Whispering, pretending to be forced for the first time, so nervous. However, she finally extended the repayment deadline, and for other phone calls, she answered ambiguously according to this template, which proved to be successful. At this moment, the lingering system has reappeared. Please prepare for the interview with the male lead Cheng Yi's personal bodyguard, otherwise, with your current balance, you will not be able to survive until next month. I need you to manage it. Jiang Chacha poked her head out of her love pillow, and after eating noodles for several days, her complexion was extremely ugly. Every morning when she woke up and looked in the mirror, she was scared by her waxy yellow face. A beautiful teenage girl, who was subjected to inhumane abuse, was forced to become so thin. The days were gradually counting down, and the system strongly demanded that she learn those martial arts books. She didn't even learn them, and she has been struggling until now. People only start to worry and worry when they are on the brink of death. On the day of the part-time bodyguard interview, Jiang Chacha took out the street vendor suit she had negotiated with the lady in the second-hand market, put on leather shoes, put on a neutral makeup, concealed her feminine features, and wore sunglasses. As long as the sunglasses didn't fall off, Cheng Ting of the same grade wouldn't notice that she was the vice president on campus. Jiang Chacha got on the city bus, which was so old that it was in a terrible condition. It was shaking and swaying all the way, causing her to see stars in her eyes and almost vomit on the bus. She gritted her teeth. Why hasn't this broken bus been eliminated yet? After sitting for over half an hour, she finally arrived at the Cheng family mansion. The gate in front of her was tall and magnificent, making her appear particularly small. Ginger tea seemed to smell the smell of money. She mustered up the courage and rang the doorbell. End of this chapter.